What's happening, everybody? Welcome into the Wilbur and Gold Show. I'm your host, Will Dalton, a.k.a. Wilbur and Gold. It's a pleasure to be with you on a Tuesday, March 1st, the month of my birthday, no less. Hope you're doing well. Good to be with you. I feel like I just said that already. Just dropped my pen. That's a good start. If you don't know who I am, I'm Will Dalton, a.k.a. Wilbur and Gold, and I'm a baseball guy, I'm a sports guy, I'm a Star Wars guy. I'm a radio broadcaster. I do play-by-play for sports, usually baseball and basketball. Those are my main two. I'm a creative. I'm a content creator. I flip shit on eBay. I'm into entrepreneurship. So if any of those things, I'm a Star Wars, Game of Thrones, Spider-Man, all things below that, all things you'll catch here on the channel. Usually we come on around, from here on out, you can probably catch us right around midday, noon, Eastern time. Usually we'll go live around 12, maybe a couple minutes after, give it a few minutes. I do like to do the live format because I love to be able to interact with the audience live on air when we do get, we're still small, so usually only get maybe a couple come in per show, but I value that just the same. I love to interact live on air. I love to get the comments in here. Spartan Barton's been one of our main people here lately. Shout out to him. He might join us today. We shall see. But yeah, so I love to do the live show to get in there with the audience and chop it up with you guys. And there will be times that it'll be recorded. I think what I'm going to do, because I want to get the show in, usually on here around, again, 12 Eastern time on most weekdays. We might do it certain weekends as well. But there are a few days out of the week where my schedule is such to where I can't do a live one at midday, but because I want to have consistency, there might be some days where I record one either the night before or earlier in the day and then just put it out at, again, noon Eastern time. So we'll start to build a little more consistency around here. So but yeah, so that's when you can catch us, and we hope you'll come in. Again, we're going to have live comments where essentially what I'll do is I'll see your comments here on my screen, and I'll put your comment right here, and we will engage live on air because it's a lot of fun. I feel like it brings value to you guys, which is what I'm all about as much as I possibly can. So come visit, come hang. So it is good to be with you today. I've got my lemon water as always. I've got my coffee as always. This is, I forget what this is. I'm getting kind of low on my good coffee beans that I use for my espresso machine. So usually I got to go to Sam's Club and get some more. I don't have it because I'm out at the bags in the trash can. But you can literally go to Sam's Club. And I'm a very new Sam's Club member, so I sound like I don't get out enough by just going on about how big of a bag of coffee I can get from Sam's Club for only $10. It's like $9.88 or something like that. That lasts me months. But I love my coffee, and I roll through it. And when I'm going to Harris Teeter, like I got a little lazy there for a few months, and I really didn't make a run to Sam's Club. And honestly, my apartment complex, I literally have a Harris Teeter like in my complex. So it's kind of cool. I've got a Harris Teeter like in my neighborhood that I could literally just walk to. And so I kind of got a little lazy for a couple of months, and I was literally just going and getting like, the basic small bag, just a basic small bag of coffee beans. Usually I would get it Caribou coffee, the Caribou Classic, I think it was called. So good. But the problem is with that, is, usually I would get the ones that were on sale, so $6, $7, $8, depending on what it was. But the problem is, like, I'd be through it in 2 weeks. So as opposed to this massive bag of good quality, usually dark roast coffee beans from Sam's Club for $10, and this shit lasts me months. So anywho, long story short, I'm working with a K-Cup. Cup of coffee. Let me see. What did I use? See, this is the beautiful thing about how I roll with my content is I literally don't give a shit. So I will walk off camera and go to my kitchen and get my box of K-Cups that I'm Javalia frothy cappuccino, free plug. They're not sponsoring this because I only have like 18 subscribers, but hey, we're working on it. But anyway, it's pretty good. And usually, see, I'm a weird character in the fact that I actually prefer brown sugar in my coffee. And maybe I'm not a weird character on that, but usually most people, I would assume, prefer just whatever regular sugar that they have. But I love putting brown sugar in my coffee. I always use brown sugar. Actually, because it's a little healthier, I usually use honey, but I'm out of honey because I need to go to the grocery store. But usually when I want a little more just sugary coffee, if I'm on a cheat day or I've been good, so I give myself a little sugary coffee, I'll go brown sugar, and then I mix it with, right now I'm working with some caramel macchiato creamer from Aldi that was literally like $1.30, and it is banging. It's so good. Like, because most creamer at Harris Teeter, like, it costs like usually $4 or $5, even $6, depending on what brand it is. And this shit's as good as any of that as $1.30 from Aldi. So if you're, living on your own for the first time, or you're trying to really stay disciplined with your expenses, I guess you could say, I'm telling you, man, Sam's Club for like your mass veggies or things like that. Sam's Club, Aldi, because you can get so many groceries for like $20 from Aldi. And the weird thing about Aldi is, like, there are some Aldis where you walk in and you're like, it's an acquired taste, can be, depending on which one it is or where you're at. But I'm telling you, like, some of Aldi's shit is better than like other places, like other grocery stores. Like, I don't know why. Like, some of their chips and snack foods and things like that, like, it's better than other grocery stores. And that's how this creamer is like, it's better than it's as good as any good creamer that I've gotten from a Harris Teeter or anywhere else, which Harris Teeter's in my trio too. I go Sam's Club, but I'm probably going to switch over to Costco this year because I prefer Costco over Sam's Club, but it was like $60 a year for Costco, $45 a year for Sam's Club, and I got a deal when I signed up for Sam's Club. And if I were to sign up when I did, which I did, and then when I did. I haven't had any coffee at all. I got a $45 gift card for Sam's Club. If I throw this pen one more damn time, what I did was I got a $45 gift card for Sam's Club when I signed up. So it was essentially like I signed up for Sam's Club for free because I just got $45 worth of groceries. So it was well worth it. But in the grand scheme of things, $60 a year, $45 a year, like, it's really not like, and I would prefer Costco over Sam's Club. That's just my preference. So I'm probably going to switch that over this year when my year's up at Sam's, fun fact. But Sam's or Costco, Aldi. I've heard Lidl, which is just a little bit of an upscaled Aldi from what I understand. I still need to go there. One of those two. And then my preference for a third is Harris Teeter. I usually just shop for things that are on sale. But that's my trifecta right there. It's a Sam's or a Costco, an Aldi or a Lidl, and then a Harris Teeter. That's it. Although I have heard Publix is really good. I have heard good things about Publix. So that's your grocery store segment for the day. By the way, let me just start with this because I was thinking about it before I went live. God, that creamer's so good. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So I was thinking about this because it's been kind of, and we briefly touched on, I kind of rambled on it the last episode about all the shit that LeBron kind of put out into the universe on All-Star Weekend about, his main goal now is he wants to play with Bronny. And so basically, if you want him, draft Bronny is essentially what he's saying. He also said that he was not shutting the door completely on potentially a return to Cleveland one day. Now, as many speculated, and as LeBron kind of cleared up in a post-game press conference the other day, where after another bad loss for the Lakers, which I tell you what, I mean, I get it, it's part of the job, but some of the things, by the way, this isn't me just bitching about the media. Like I interned at the #1 sports radio show. In fact, not even just sports radio, the #1 talk radio show just across the board in the state of North Carolina for the last 10 years, and then it went off air. Literally right before COVID hit, the David Glenn show went off air, which is where I interned at for the 10 months leading up to COVID. It was so much fun. I loved it. And what I got to do in story time, since some of you watching this, most of you probably don't know who I am yet. We're not acquainted yet. So I interned over there, and a part of my job at the David Glenn show was I would always fill out the rundown, aka our Google Doc that had like topics for the day, guests that were coming on the show. That show, we put like bullet points under the guests for like what we might want to ask them. And we all had access to the Google Doc. So David Glenn, the host, he'd be on the other side of the glass, and we're out there, we're filling this thing out, and he's got his laptop so he can kind of see and ask, what is cool. So I did that. I helped pull audio clips, whether that was music for like when when you listen to a radio show and as you're coming back onto the show after the commercial break, usually it's some music playing and then it'll go into the host, or music going out into the commercial break, or some in between, like you have the bump music. I would pull that and put it into the folders for the producer. I would pull like highlights from either interviews or game highlights, put that in, that we would put on air when we needed them. Another big staple of what I did was during the show, which this was really fun. During the show, I would answer the phone because, we had one of those radio shows where guests or audience members could call in and they could go live on air if, they have like a good topic. And so basically, and to that point, what I would do is I would basically vet the calls and, get their name, their location, and their topic. And is it something we want to hit? Do we have time to hit it? Do we need something? So we'll go to that because it's a slow day, like whatever the situation is. And so basically I would put them in the system. I'd put them on hold. And then when David Glenn would say, let's go to so-and-so from so-and-so, I'd hit the button to put them live on air. And it was a whole cool process because, basically I would put them on. So I had to make sure they were ready to go and on air when he called for them. And then there was a way that you kind of had to feel the situation where, like, when it was, like, let's say caller. So this is how radio usually works with callers. The caller asks the question, and let's say David Glenn gets into a very thoughtful response, and he goes on for a while. Let's say we're up against a break, or we're up against a guest coming on, or whatever it is, or it's just you can feel in the air that, all right, we're not putting this caller back on air. He's just kind of answering the question, and then we're going to keep moving. We might just be busy, whatever the situation is. I kind of have to feel the temperature in the room that, all right, we're done with that caller. I can drop the call. Or I had to be able to feel the temperature in the room that he was going to ask, he would get into his response, and then he would ask the caller a question, be like, does that make sense? Or like he would follow up with the caller. And so I had to make sure, like, all right, let me not drop the call early, but if it goes on for a long period of time, like I need to know when to drop them and be done. And there were a couple of times, I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but there were a couple of times where he would get into a thoughtful response and call, because there had been times where the producer was like, hey, you can drop that call, like you're good. So I'm trying to learn these things, and there were a few times where, DG would get into a thoughtful response, and I'm like, all right. So I dropped the caller and keep it moving, and then he would go back to the caller like, does that make sense? Or he would follow up, and then crickets because I dropped the call, and so he would just we would play it off as if we lost the call, like we must have lost him, but In reality, I accidentally dropped the call, and it was my mistake. So all fun parts of working on a live radio show. But another thing I did for the show, which was an incredible experience for me, was away from the show. He would have interns cover, because we were based out of Raleigh, but it was a statewide North Carolina show. So we covered, and so our main staples of the show were the ACC in sports, the College Sports Conference, ACC, and North Carolina pro sports, the Carolina Panthers, the Charlotte Hornets, and the big one for us, because one, they're really good, and two, they're right up the street, the Carolina Hurricanes in hockey. But what we would do, since we were mainly an ACC / North Carolina show, was we would cover, which were right there in our backyard as well, UNC football or basketball, NC State football or basketball, and of course Duke football or basketball, but we never really covered any Duke football because they weren't that good. So I got to go to, the Dean Dome, which I'm a Carolina fan. So, and it was an incredible experience for me because, one, I'm a Carolina fan. And I'd only ever been to one game in Chapel Hill for Carolina basketball in my whole life. I'd been to a shit ton of Carolina basketball games at the ACC tournament at the Greensboro Coliseum in Greensboro, where I live currently. And I'm from High Point, and I grew up in High Point, which is literally right next door to Greensboro. So High Point and Greensboro are kind of the same place. And so if you are from or know somebody from where you've been around the Greensboro area enough to know ACC, this is ACC country, but this is ACC basketball country. This is an ACC basketball city in Greensboro. It's where the ACC headquarters are. The ACC tournament, the ACC basketball tournament has been a staple of Greensboro culture for years. They're kind of, I don't know when it's set to return, and it was actually kind of cool how that worked out, because literally right before COVID hit and shut down sports, and I'm kind of getting off topic here, and I tend to be a little improv and go off topic because I have some ADD, and I'm very improv, and so I'll be talking about one thing, and then I'll hit this, and then I'll come back, and then I'll hit that, and then I'll come around and hit something else. It's just, but you got plenty of things to talk about, so it's kind of a get your curse is your gift type thing, or your gift is your, I don't fucking know. It doesn't, like, I like it. I enjoy the fact that I kind of go improv like that. It's fun. Keeps you on your toes. But so literally right before COVID shut down everything, the ACC tournament that year was set to be in Greensboro for the first time since the last time it had been here, which was the last time that I had gotten to go to a game. And that last game that I got to go to was the ACC title game, Carolina against Notre Dame, and Carolina had it in the bag. And this was the 2015 ACC tournament when Marshall Page was over there, Bryce Johnson was over there, JP fucking jumped through the ceiling, Tokoto was over there. If you're a Carolina fan, I don't even have to explain that to you. Trying to think who else was on that team. McAdoo might have been on that team. Theo Penson was on that team. Who else? I feel like I'm missing one big one. I don't know. That's the main ones, though. So anyway, that was the last time that I had gotten to go to the ACC tournament, and it was kind of weird how I came into that because that was the biggest sporting event up to that point that I'd ever gotten to go to, the ACC title game. And what made it big was not only is it the ACC championship, but it's Carolina in the ACC championship, which, and again, if you're a Carolina fan or you're from this area, you know when Carolina, even more so than Duke, by the way, and that's not me being a Carolina fan and saying fuck Duke, but it is a well-known fact that Greensboro, this area, is a UNC Tar Heel territory, more so than Duke, more so than NC State. And so when Carolina is playing in Greensboro in the ACC tournament, I mean, the house is rocking. It is just one giant Tar Heel party. I mean, the place is electric. And so you can imagine what that is like for the ACC championship game. And I had already gotten to go to a Carolina game that tournament because I was playing college baseball up at Surrey Community College. It was my freshman year of college, which, again, if you're from this area, you know this. Surrey Community College is out near Mount Airy, North Carolina, about an hour and 5 minutes away from the High Point, Greensboro area. So I skipped basic because I wanted to go see Carolina play. It had been a while. And you know what? We had a Saturday practice. Actually, no. I skipped a practice to go to the Carolina game. Fun fact. It's not necessarily something I'm proud of. So basically, I told him I was sick. It was a rainy day, a rainy Monday practice, and basically I just told him I was sick, and I went to the Carolina game back home in Greensboro. And so basically your ticket would get you into two games. There was like sessions throughout the day, and each one had 2 games in it. There was usually, in the first and second round, there was like a morning or early afternoon. Usually games would start around 11, 12 o'clock in the afternoon. There was usually a midday session. I'm trying to think. Usually there was, I don't know if like on the first round when there's more games, if there was like an early session, a mid-afternoon session, and then your night session. And so I went to the one that Carolina was in, and the first game I saw was, I believe, I want to say Florida State and Boston College, I think. And then the second game was Louisville versus Carolina. And it was actually the year that Montrezl Harrell was at Louisville. It was his last year there when he was just a beast of a force for Louisville. And it's so cool now. Here we go, getting off topic again. It was so cool because now it's come full circle. Because I was mesmerized by Montrezl Harrell and just what a beast he was. And I mean, he would throw down. He played with such grit and force. Like he would throw down the most ferocious jams you've ever seen. And he could shoot free throws. Like, so he was smooth there. So I loved to watch him play. And he's from North Carolina. I didn't know this till after the fact. I kind of started to do some homework on him. He's from Tarboro, which is North Carolina. And so now it's come full circle. He's actually, the Hornets picked him up like a month ago, which I love. It's a great pickup for them because they needed a ferocious big man like that. And Mason Plumlee has been good. And you add Montrezl Harrell to that, like, I like that. I really like that for the Hornets. And the Hornets, they got a little something cooking. They're right there to be in the play-in tournament in the East. And so they got a little something cooking. I mean, they have really – I mean, they obviously got LaMelo. They got Miles Bridges, that Airbnb combo. Gordon Hayward, although a lot of people thought that he's not worth what he's being paid. He's been good at times this year too. And they got a little something cooking finally in Charlotte, and it's not just, they're going to make a little playoff run. Like, I feel like this is a situation now where they're just going to build and get a little better each year. Now they got LaMelo. They've got a legit superstar. He might not be a superstar yet, but he's coming. He's already coming. For the first time in his career, MJ as an owner got a pick right in the draft. Although Kemba was a good one too, I could say. But yeah, so Charlotte ain't no joke. And we're going to get back to Charlotte here in a little bit because I had something that I want to kind of bring up about Charlotte and LeBron. But getting back on point, what was the point? But no, so that's when I first saw Montrezl Harrell was in that ACC tournament. So I got a ticket. So I bought a ticket, skipped practice, and I went to the ACC tournament. Damn it! I mean, it was a rainy fucking day, so it wasn't like I wasn't missing much anyway at practice. At least that's what I told myself. It's kind of funny to talk about it and look back at it now. So my dad's friend, my dad's good friend, he came across, I think somebody gave him, or I don't know how he got it, but he got a ticket to the ACC title game. So I'm literally sitting there eating dinner. And it's literally an hour and a half or so, maybe hour. It's like an hour till game time, essentially, for the ACC title. I'm sitting there eating my dinner. I'm going to watch on TV. And my dad comes in. He's on the phone with his buddy and goes, "You want to go to the ACC title game?" I'm like, "Come again?" Jeff, his buddy, had a ticket. And he wasn't going to go because he's not the type. He doesn't like big crowds, and obviously he didn't want to go for whatever reason. He's a big Carolina fan, but he didn't want to go. I said, "I'll take it." So we go, we hurry, we meet him we go over to his house, we get the ticket, and I bolt for the Greensboro Coliseum to go see Carolina almost win the ACC title. They played a hell of a game, but they blew it. They gave it away. But it was just such an incredible experience. It was so electric. Again, just the regular preliminary rounds of the ACC tournament that Carolina plays in, like, it's already electric. But imagine the ACC title game. But Notre Dame did win it. So getting back on the original topic, so literally right when COVID shut everything down, coming back full circle, so that was the last time when I got to go to the ACC title game. That was the last time that the ACC championship was in Greensboro, 5 years prior. So come full circle to, I'm literally in the media now. I'm technically a part of sports media that gets to be behind the scenes. I get to go to the press conferences. I get to go down on the court with the players. I get to be on the sidelines, literally. And it was a cool full circle moment for me that the next time that, something that was a staple of my childhood growing up, it was really cool that the very next time that it would be back in Greensboro, that I wouldn't just be a fan. I was, a part of the sports media. I was able to go and literally be from me to you to Roy Williams, from me to you to the players, from me to you to Coach K, and was many times. So it was such a cool experience that I had been looking forward to for so long. So then COVID did what COVID did. And, that was when the rumblings were first starting. And the night before, this was about Wednesday. So we had gotten to about the quarterfinal round of the ACC tournament, I think. And the game that was going to be the opener on the day that I was there was going to be Clemson, Florida State. Florida State was the regular season champion that year. They were the 1 seed. Clemson had a very solid year. They were right on the verge of being in the NCAA tournament that year, and they basically were in a spot where they had to win the ACC tournament to get into the NCAA tournament. So that was going to be a good game. And so DG and I, we were going to room together for that whole deal, and we got on a bus. They had a shuttle that would basically take the media, because we had one hotel that mostly all the media members were staying at. So DG and I, we had a room there, and they had a shuttle that would take us over to the Greensboro Coliseum, literally like 5 minutes up the highway. And as we're going, like, we're kind of talking amongst ourselves, and you can hear we're reading Twitter, and we obviously had already know from the night before that the NBA is shut down. Tom Hanks, this was when he first had it, and and we thought that could be a death sentence for all we know. Like, we didn't know what it was. We didn't know what we didn't know at that time. So we're reading Twitter as the shuttle is taking us to the Coliseum, and we're reading that literally most all of the other conferences, because that's how it works, conference tournament week, all the major conferences in the Power Five and all the, Pac-12, Big East, SEC, they all have their conference tournaments right around the same time. And then you got the selection show, and off we go into the NCAA tournament. So we were reading, and most of the other conferences had already canceled their tournaments by this point. The ACC and the Big East, I think, were the last two standing. And, we're just trying to figure out, what are they going to do? Because remember, the NBA is already suspended indefinitely at this point. That was that night after the epic Thunder Jazz. I think it was that Thunder Jazz game where they had to basically clear the stadium, and that's when we found out Gobert had it, Rudy Gobert, and that's when it all started to fall. So then, all the conferences mostly canceled their tournament. I believe also, and this was before the NBA, because this was right when this was becoming an issue, the NBA, or before the NBA had suspended the season, they essentially had decided that March Madness, the NCAA tournament, will be played with no fans, which was unheard of. Because, March Madness it is what it's called, March Madness. It's crazy. And it would be played in a silent, empty, outside of the teams, the staffs, and the media, an empty fucking stadium, which was just unheard of. And was just going to be, like, apocalyptic, to say the least. So we're reading on Twitter that Clemson, and so we're wondering, like, who's going to, like, the ACC and the Big East were the last two to go, at least for the major conferences. And, we're sitting there talking just like, the ACC is not, so let's say the Big East cancels. And it doesn't matter at this point. Most of them, the ACC did not want to be in the position to be the lone wolf to say, fuck it, we're going to go on and do this. And then they have an outbreak and something bad happens. And again, you didn't know what you didn't know at this point about COVID. So you didn't want to be in that position to be one of the lone wolves to say, fuck it, and then it come back and bite you in the ass and you look bad. So we begin to get updates that Clemson, who was out on the court warming up, they've come off the court. The band has stopped playing. And by the way, here's another little staple in this. So the night before at the ACC tournament, where Carolina got their shit wrecked by Syracuse in embarrassing fashion, and I still haven't quite gotten over that, clearly. That was to be the last game. So as all these things were unfolding, that was to be the last game with fans for the ACC tournament. So the ACC tournament, it had already been decided they were going to be without fans for the rest of the tournament. And it was wild. Like, it was crazy. And it was kind of cool yet weird. Because it was cool in the sense, like, this is something that's never happened, and I'm going to get to witness and be a part of, I guess, history in a sense. And it was weird in the sense that it's just like, this shit's like weird, and it's unheard of, and it's apocalyptic, and it's just like, we don't know what the hell's going to happen when we get down there. So we get word Clemson's come off. The bands have stopped playing, which that in itself was weird because there were no fans there, but yet the band's playing. I don't know. Just, again, more weirdness. So then, literally, right as we get there, we're getting our credentials, our necklace with the card on it that says we can go down on the court. As we are getting that, the ACC commissioner officially comes out, and they put him on TV, and he basically announces that the ACC tournament is suspended, and because Florida State was the regular season champ and the number 1 seed, they're just going to end it, and by default, give Florida State the ACC title, which was wild. But that's what happened. And so the ACC commissioner came out, made a speech about halfway through this, because again, we're back under the tunnel getting our credentials. So we come out, and about halfway through his speech or towards the end of it, we, come out onto the court where he is and all the media around him giving the speech. And then they do a little trophy ceremony right there, giving Florida State the trophy, and everybody's taking pictures. And it was a weird scene. Not one I will ever forget, but it was kind of cool to be a part of that moment in history and moment in time. So anyway, that happened literally. It was a wild experience. So that was my experience at the end of my internship in sports radio. It was a wild wild bang to go out on. I'll say that. And the show went, and it would have been, it was a weird situation on top already, because again, the show had gone off air unexpectedly because of things behind the scenes. And, David Glenn had been on air with that show for 11 years. And again, it was the biggest, not just sports, but it was the biggest radio talk show in the state of North Carolina for however many years prior. And it was just sudden. And he went off air for reasons that had nothing to do with the COVID situation. And, we were already going to be covering the ACC tournament anyway, because that was one of the main pillars of our show was ACC sports. And so we just decided we're credentialed. We're going to be there anyway. Let's go have a good time. It's a good networking opportunity. It's going to be cool just to go hang and kind of chill as guys, since all this is going down with the show, and just, maybe just kind of chill and have a good time for the most part. Because we weren't really going to be covering anything, because, again, we don't have a show to cover for anymore. We're just kind of going because we're already credentialed. So it was just a wild finish to my internship in sports radio, and it started a whole transition period for me, because I was writing, and I'll talk to you guys more about these things, as we go and as more content comes out, and just some experiences that I've gotten to have that maybe I would be cool to share. So, because I was right at a point where I was looking to get a job in sports media, and then sports shut down because of COVID. And so, it was already a rough time for most people coming out of college and coming out of internships and looking to enter the workforce for the first time in their careers. And then that happened. So, but it was even more so for us that were a part of things that shut down due to COVID, which I guess that was most things. But I guess, I'm not going to say that my situation was any more unique than anyone else's. I'm not going to do that. But it was weird in the sense that, I cover sports. Sports is shut down for however long, because, again, you don't know what you don't know. So we didn't know how long it was going to be shut down for. And there were hiring freezes, and people were already laid off. So, here I am about to go and attempt to get a job in sports media and sports radio or broadcasting or something. And, forget hiring somebody. They're cutting back big time, because of the shutdown. So it was a weird period of time. I had put on some weight that I had lost a year and a half prior. The summer going into my senior year of college, I made a big transition physically. I lost 20 pounds of just blubber. I was a little fluffier, and I leaned up. I lost 20 pounds. I made some major changes mentally. I really started to learn some things about, just mental health and myself, and a lot of things spiritually, which I'm I'm very big on those things. And I learned some things about myself, and just began the process of making a big transition to the point where I literally got back to school senior year of college, and people were like, "Who the fuck are you?" Like, because again, like, you see me now, like I'm talking, I'm shooting the shit. I was considered a quiet guy and kind of reserved for most of my life up to that point, at least out in public. At home around my parents, or like my best friend, like I was a fucking nut, like I am right now, and just like how you see me right now, kind of but I never showed that to people until, again, I started to really make some of those mental changes that if you go back and you look at the very first episode of the show, I talk a little bit about that, what changed things for me and some of the things that I learned. And I'll go into more because I've learned new things and added on to that since then. So I'm going to be able to add and expand on that a lot. I've been having some conversations with some people that are close to me about things they're going through, and I would like to think I have something to offer that could, just maybe be a good word to help. And so I've been already kind of trying to talk with and help them on some things. So I'm like, as I start to gather my thoughts and kind of put things together in a very easy way to explain certain things, I might start to make some more content on that that I think could help a lot of people and bring value. But yeah, I mean, I lost 20 pounds and I gradually, I lost 20 pounds the summer going into my senior year of college, maintained that. Because, again, I was a baseball player, so that was another part of why I lost that weight, because I was trying to, be better on that account. So, it wasn't just I lost weight. I lost weight and I trained a lot because I was a baseball player. And I wanted to have a very good off season. So I maintained that weight that I was at, the weight that I had lost. I maintained that. And then right around the holidays of that year, 2019 or 2018 to be exact, Thanksgiving hits, put about 5 pounds back on. Christmas hits, put maybe 3 or 4 or 5 pounds more back on. So just like that, I've gone. The lowest I got, I started out, let's see, I was around 208-ish. I think that was the highest I got to. And I got all the way down to 179. I don't know if I got 8 or not, but I got 179. And again, in a short period of time. But gradually over time, I put a little back on, started to get a little comfortable, started to pay, put more effort into other things, aka my internship and my career side of things. And so I was putting more effort into that. And then my fitness, my baseball career ends, after that year. And so I kind of backed off in the weight room aspect of things and, just took some steps back and stopped up. No, I took some steps back on the physical aspect of things and to a degree, the mental aspect of things. And it really all hit an apex when COVID started, as it did for a lot of people, I'm sure. And I just woke up one day and, everything shut down. I'm on the verge, because at the time, I was living at a college apartment that my dad was paying for. I was rooming with some baseball players at the college that I was playing at, but I was doing my internship. So that lease was going to be, because COVID started in March of 2020, and my lease ran out at the end of July that year. So I was right on the verge of having to move back in with my parents, and didn't know what my situation was going to be because of COVID shutting things down. So again, it was a weird time, and a time where I kind of had an opportunity to really reflect. And, I didn't like some of what I was seeing. I'd regressed on clearly the physical side. I had regressed on the physical side. I had gained that 20 pounds back in change and then some a little bit. And, I'd regressed a little bit on the mental side of things. I'd stopped paying attention and kind of just checking up on certain things on the inside. I was so focused on things going on outside, and that's what I've learned through that whole thing was you got to get both. If you have a lot of different things you want to work on, you gotta try to find a way to hit them all, even if it's just for a few minutes. And that few minutes each day on certain things, it builds habits and rituals, and it goes a long way. And that's how you set a foundation. And I can safely say that that's something I didn't do the first time around when I lost that 20 pounds, because I lost it like that. You got to remember, I mean, I was in the off season and I was coming back to school mid-August, at the end of August. So we got out at the beginning of, I had 3 months to make some major changes and lose that weight. And I did. But I think I did it so fast and just so willpowered it that I didn't really take the time to build a foundation to where on days where I really just was kind of off or wasn't feeling it, I didn't set a foundation to fall back on to still get some things done. And I think that's important. It's important to build a foundation, and it's important to change your mindset when you're going to do certain things. I was telling somebody the other day that a lot of times a fat person will lose a shit ton of weight or start to lose a lot of weight, and they'll maintain that for a little while, and then over time they'll gradually put it back on, and they're right back where they started, or maybe even worse than when they started, and they just go, oh, well, that's just the way things are. It's not the reason it's not the way things are. It's that even though you lost a lot of weight, you still had the mentality of a fat person. You know, you never changed this up here, and that's the operating system. That's the thermostat. It controls everything. So it's important that even while you're trying to will something and willpower something, you got to take the time to set a foundation to kind of fall back on if you have if you have certain days where you're just not feeling it, you just don't want to do it. You have to have that foundation under you to be able to still get something out of it. So yeah, when COVID hit and all that happened, it was kind of like, that summer going into my senior year of college, it was kind of, I guess, the beginning of really learning some things and the beginning of a big transition for me. And I guess right there during COVID, and I guess you could just say the whole COVID year, which even though COVID technically is still going on, it's COVID 2020. COVID 2020 was a completely different animal, and it was just than what it is now. And so I would say that 2020 year, that COVID year, was kind of part two of really transitioning for me personally. And again, just really learning some more things. And so, but yeah. So anyway, that was a lot, but I kind of wanted to do a show where I guess I talk a little more about my background. And I've got a vlog. I'm going to start a vlog series as well, kind of starting to document some things because, I've been doing this show now kind of half-assed for a while. We're at episode 46 now, and I've just been doing it, and I'm looking at, I've been doing it, and it's been kind of inconsistent, and I'm really looking to really grow it now. I've gotten some reps in with it, and I've gotten to fuck around and play around with it, but now I'm looking to really build it, and so that's why we're going to be consistent at noon Eastern time, most weekdays, even maybe some weekends. And there's going to be some more other types of content coming out on this channel because I'm looking to grow the channel. I've gotten a little something brewing over on TikTok, but I'm looking to kind of spread that to some of my other platforms, and YouTube is a big part of that for me personally. So I'm going to start a vlog series. I've already got the first one made, and again, to kind of the point where I was kind of half-assing shit. Like I vlogged this, or I should say, like, this first vlog is literally going to be from a year ago. I just haven't edited it yet. So, but I do kind of go into even more depth about just a little bit of my background and just kind of more who I am and what I'm all about, what I'm, I don't like to talk a ton about what I'm looking to do. I like to just do it. But I do throw some ideas in there that I might be looking to do here on the channel. And so, I kind of wanted to take a show, mostly, it was a little more than I planned on, but just kind of talking about some things in my background and who I am, and, maybe just kind of a get to know you type show, and we'll go from there. So, let's see here. I got about 5 more minutes. I'll go here. I'll say this because this was an actual topic that I wanted to get into, and it was going to be a short topic anyway, so I can kind of wrap up with this. What's up? Got one viewer here. So to the point of we were talking about Montrezl Harrell coming back to the Hornets, and the Hornets looking pretty solid. I'll tell you something else. To the point of all this LeBron stuff that's been, LeBron, does he want out? LeBron, should he want to be traded? The Lakers, should they want to trade LeBron? And how he's not potentially closing the door in Cleveland. And he absolutely is wanting to play with Bronny his last year of his career, and he will do whatever it takes to do that. I'll tell you something that I've heard kind of tossed around about that whole situation. A lot of people in the media, and I don't know if there's actually something to this or just if this is just maybe they think Charlotte is still not a good team and they're still going to be like a lottery team, which from what I understand right at this time, Bronny James is not going to be a lottery player anyway. Now, whether he intended it or not, I definitely think LeBron James did and still will improve Junior's draft stock just by saying, hey, you want me, draft Bronny. Whatever team Bronny goes to, I will literally do whatever it takes, maybe even play for league minimum to play with him, just that 1 year and then retire. So even whether he's meaning to do that, which I personally don't think he is or not, I just think it's going to be a byproduct of it regardless. He's improving Bronny's stock just by doing that. So, but even then, I don't know that LeBron Jr. is going to be a lottery pick at this point. I mean, he's still got some years to up it, so we'll see. But he'll have Charlotte's not going to be a lottery team. At least I don't see any way Charlotte's going to be a lottery team anytime soon, just because they are trending in the other direction. They're trending in the right direction, and so I don't know if maybe certain people that have said that just don't realize that Charlotte's kind of up and coming or what. But I have heard a couple different people, like when they're throwing out teams that might draft Bronny and could get LeBron, and as a byproduct, Charlotte has been thrown out there a couple of times that I've caught. And it's like, hey, LeBron James would be my favorite player all time if he came to Charlotte. Right now it's LaMelo because he's a Hornet. And I just like everything about LaMelo's game. I like his personality. That's why I like Cam Newton, and Cam Newton's my favorite because his personality and just the way he plays. I know a lot of people don't relate with his personality, but I do. And I feel the same way about LaMelo. So, but I tell you right now, if LeBron comes to Charlotte, LeBron is now my favorite player. So, because I can't have and by the way, full transparency, since this is a kind of get to know you type show, at least I'm trying to make it that a little more so, since I'm trying to ramp things up around here. I was a bandwagon wherever LeBron goes fan in the NBA for a long time, because I've always been a Carolina fan, Tar Heels. I've always been a Yankee fan. I don't consider myself a bandwagon Yankee fan just because when I first became a Yankee fan, I was so little and so young, I didn't know anything about bandwagoning and the championships and this and that. I remember, in fact, I'll tell you why, and I guess in theory, this is bandwagoning on a very immature and just young basis. But the reason I became a Yankee fan, dead ass, was for two reasons. One, I used to love to watch Derek Jeter when I was a little kid. And two, I remember whenever I'd be watching when my parents would be watching the evening news and I'd be sitting there watching it with them, the Yankee logo, that hat over the baseball bat, part of the Yankee logo, it was always it was always on the sports report. Rightfully so, because that's when they were going to World Series year after year after year. There in that early 2000 section. So I guess technically, even though that's not why I started pulling for the Yankees, that I guess technically that's a version of bandwagon, even though it wasn't the intent. You know, it's like, oh, I see that logo all the time. I'm going to pull for that. So I don't consider myself a bandwagon Yankee fan, even though I guess technically the way it happened could be bandwagon-ish on a naive and just not even realizing it level, but whatever. The way I look at it, I didn't know anything about the championships at the time. I didn't know anything about that. It's not why. I just like, you know what? I see that all the time. That's my team. So I don't know. But, I mean, I've rode with them the whole way, even the years here lately and even before that when they've been just terribly run. And so it's like, to me, like if you were really a bandwagon, you would have jumped ship at this point for a Yankee fan. So I'm very aware and see, here's the difference between me as a Yankee fan and most Cowboy fans is they're delusional about their chances to do certain things and the way things are. And I can look at the Yankees and say they are terribly run. And it ain't good right now for the Yankees. I mean, they've got talent in theory, but they don't use it properly, and they don't do a very good job of running it over there. So I have no delusions about that, like Cowboy fans tend to have. So, but no, always a Yankee fan, always a Carolina Panther fan. Jeff Gordon fan too, by the way. I don't watch NASCAR as close. I would love NASCAR as a little kid. Let's see. Always a Yankee fan, always a Carolina Tar Heel fan, always a Carolina Panther fan. Actually, I liked the Panthers and the Redskins there for a long time. And the weirdest reason, it's such a weird reason why I like the Redskins. Literally, because yellow, gold, potato, I guess you could say, has always been one of my favorite colors. And they had yellow. I just used to think that those yellow face masks that were on the Redskins helmet were the coolest fucking thing ever. I loved it. Just their colors, their helmet, like, even though that technically, I guess, you know, the whole reason that the Redskins changed their branding and logo because, you know, the Redskin name was considered offensive. Well, the Redskins, the Indian, was also another reason that I liked the Redskins because I watched a lot of Westerns back in those days, and I just was fascinated by Native Americans. I was fascinated by the Indian culture, the feathers, the bonnets, and I watched a lot of Westerns and movies like back in old times because that's what I was allowed to watch as a kid. And I just, anytime like a Western would come on and it had Indians in it, I was just obsessed and glued to the TV. I even had like a feathered bonnet as a kid because it was just so cool to me. So that was the yellow face mask and just the Indian side of it the culture I just loved. I thought was so cool growing up. That drew me into watching the Redskins. But as I grew, and then in the NBA, even though I haven't been a fan of it my whole life, like I probably didn't start getting hooked on the NBA until till probably LeBron's last little chunk of years there in Cleveland, the first time leading up to him going to Miami. That's when I kind of transitioned into watching the NBA quite a bit. Before that, it was all college basketball. But I didn't really know, like, and by the way, this is why people become bandwagon fans, is because the team you should only pull for the team that's in your hometown or where you're from. Usually. Like that. To me, like, if you are from, I'm trying to think of because Charlotte's not really shitty anymore. But when I kind of got out of my LeBron bandwagon stage, the Hornets were still shitty, by the way. They didn't draft LaMelo, and I was like, you know what? Back to the Hornets. Like, it didn't work that way. But that's like somebody being from Sacramento, or the Magic are coming along, so they're not a great example anymore. They got old Tar Heel Cole Anthony's down there. Knicks are struggling, but they're technically a big brand, so they can be a bandwagon fan anyway. Let's just go with Sacramento. That's like you living in Sacramento or San Antonio, because the Spurs haven't been shit for a couple years now. And because like they don't have any big names on the team, They're not very good, and they're one of those teams that honestly, when people are thinking about the league, they forget that they're even a team and that they even exist. That type of team. You're from that. And because of that, you decide, you know what, fuck that team. I'm going to go be a Warrior fan. I'm going to go be a Curry fan. I'm going to go be a Laker fan, LeBron, which is what I did. Because the Bobcats, as they were back in those days, they weren't shit. They weren't cool. They didn't have any big names. They did have a couple of Tar Heels, though, back when Sean May and Raymond Felton was over there, but I digress. But I didn't really care for the Bobcats. I didn't see any – I just whatever. So I decided, you know what? I like LeBron. I'm a Cavs fan. I'm a Heat fan. I'm a Cavs fan again because I was a Cavs fan technically the first time, so I'm a Cavs fan again. And then when LeBron went from Cleveland to L.A., that's when I kind of was like, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I can't. So right there when LeBron switched over, right when LeBron went from Cleveland to LA, that's when I kind of took a step back. I was like, you know what? I just, because it just didn't feel right to me as a true, genuine sports fan. It didn't feel right. LeBron's, I always considered LeBron my favorite player, and I always was a fan of whoever he fucking played for. But that next switch to LA, the Lakers, is just like, you know what? I'm not a Laker fan. I never was a Laker fan. I somewhat could justify it when he was in Cleveland, just because that was the first team I was drawn to, kind of when I first started really watching the NBA. And then when he went to Miami, technically I did like watching Miami before that because of Dwayne Wade. He was another player I liked. So I was like, potato, potato. I can go both ways here. But when he went to LA, I was never a Kobe fan. I was never a Laker fan. So that's when I was like, you know what? I can't. So I stopped being a LeBron. I'm not anti-LeBron. I don't call myself I don't call him my favorite player anymore just because I can't. I don't want to be a bandwagon. And so I hope that confession there will convey Charlotte Hornets fans to be okay with me being a part of their fandom. That I assume. I mean, I don't give a rat's ass anyway. I'm pulling for the Hornets, so I don't give a shit. I'm a Hornets fan through and through now, but clearly. But I mean, the Hornets weren't shit when I finally kind of woke up and was like, you know what? I'm from Greensboro. I'm from North Carolina. I can't do this bandwagon LeBron shit anymore. I'm going Hornets, Bobcats. I just don't want to do it anymore. I want to be all in on the Hornets because you know why I did that? Because LeBron's already got his rings. LeBron's already got his chips. Hornets have none. The Hornets haven't done anything. The Panthers, even though I've always been a Panther fan, but Panthers haven't won theirs yet. So I felt it was as good a time as any that I'm like, you know what? I need to get in there with the Hornets just because it's that's where I'm from. That's where I need to be representing. No, they don't have. They weren't shit when I finally made that transition to being a Hornets fan, just because they didn't. But to me, I viewed that as the perfect time to get right spiritually with the Hornets, just because there's no big names yet. They didn't have LaMelo yet. Nobody was even expecting. I never even considered LaMelo would go to the Hornets. It was literally it was Terry Rozier, who's become a nice little threat, by the way. I don't even think Terry Rozier was there yet when I first got right with the Hornets. It was literally they had Cody Zeller. They had Nick Batum. Kemba had left by that point, went to Boston. And they had, God, what was his name? I really liked him, the guard. I'm trying to think. This is going to bother me. In fact, I'll tell you exactly, because I switched back over to the Hornets. I say switch back. I got myself right with the Hornets spiritually in 2020. So they weren't shit. Kemba had already been dealt by that point. I'll tell you who was on that team that year. And Miles Bridges wasn't anything. I didn't know who Miles Bridges was yet. Nobody knew he was going to become the stud that he's become. They literally had, let's see here. They had Dwayne Bacon. They had Nick Batum, who was well past his prime. They did have Miles Bridges. They had Bismack Biyombo, who that did not turn out what I thought it would be. They had Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. That was not a great pick by Jordan. They had Cody and Caleb Martin. They had Malik Monk back when he was first getting into the league. They didn't have Terry Rozier yet. They would later acquire him that year, though. They had a Tar Heel, Marvin Williams, and they had Cody Zeller. But my favorite player for that original Hornets team, when I finally became a Hornets fan and got right spiritually and stopped being a bandwagon LeBron fan, Devontae Graham. I love Devontae Graham. He's my favorite player on that Hornets team back in 19 and 20 that season. And I really kind of hated to see him go, but I guess it was predictable because Rozier was lighting it up and they had LaMelo. So it was like, well, but no, I really liked Devontae Graham. And obviously it was probably better for him to go elsewhere anyway, just so he would get, the play that he should be getting somewhere. But yeah, so yeah, I had to stop being a bandwagon LeBron fan. Like I had to. Like it just didn't feel right. And that's why now, like I look at bandwagon fans and like I get it. I understand bandwagon fandom. And that's why when I see people like Skip Bayless, who's a diehard Cowboys fan, he's from that San Antonio or whatever area he's from, diehard Cowboys fan, but yet the next day on Undisputed, you're rocking a fucking Tom Brady Buccaneer jersey. Like, the fuck sense does that? Like, I can't stand seeing shit like that because, again, I understand bandwagon fandom very well because I used to be one. And I just can't stand because you should ride with your team. And that's why I'm proud to be a Hornets fan because they hadn't done shit. They weren't shit when I finally saw the light and was like, you know what? I need to represent. But, that because it's like if I'm going to ride with you, I need to be riding with you when you're at fucking rock bottom. That's the way it should be. Like, you shouldn't pick a team based on who's on it. You shouldn't pick a team based on their chances to win a chip. And then as soon as they become irrelevant, well, I'm out. Like, you ain't real then. You're not a real fucking fan then. Like, I want to be the type that I literally have a jersey. Like, I don't have any yet. I do have some old Bobcats jersey, though. I got a Raymond Felton, a Mika Okafor. I got a couple. I don't know. I've got two Mika Okafor jerseys, one white, one orange, old Bobcats. I'll rock it for you sometime. And then I've got a Raymond Felton jersey, ex-Tar Heel. But it's just like, I don't know, like, you ain't a real fan. If you're only rocking with a team because they're relevant or because they've got a big name star on it, like, you ain't real. You're not about it. Everybody's wanting to rock their Curry and LeBron. By the way, I ain't playing on this. Like, I had a LeBron Cavs jersey. I had a LeBron Heat jersey. I had a LeBron Laker jersey. And I hadn't even had that, even though I didn't consider myself a Laker fan, I did consider myself still a LeBron fan at the time. And I bought a LeBron jersey when he first made the switch. And I hadn't even had that bitch a year. I sold them all because I was that serious about, like, I can't do it. Like, I got to rock with my Hornets. Like, I can't do it. Let's see here. Dylan Barton in the house. You caught us literally right before we were getting ready to go off air. So I'm glad of that. He said, you're right. Got to cheer for the Laundry, win or lose. It's right. Like, I feel this on such a deep level. Like, don't call yourself a diehard Warrior fan just because, it just happened. Tell me who was on like the old Warrior teams then, if you're a real fan. Tell me about that. What you know about Elton Brand? I think he was on one of those teams. What you know about Steven Jackson? Them dogs. What you know about that if you're really a Warriors fan? I don't want to hear nothing about no Curry or KD. Fuck out of here. Oh, yeah. Woo! We preaching. Dylan Barton got in the house. Literally, I extended the show a little bit to give my little rant on bandwagon fans, and I'm glad you caught the end of that. That was good. Nah, man. I feel like I had another little point I was gonna make and I forgot it because I got excited. Maybe it'll come to me in a minute. I don't know. It's just, if you're really gonna pull for a team, you gotta hang with them even if they're at rock bottom, because then you ain't about it. Like you're not about it. You ain't about the climb. You're not about the journey, and that's why I'm very happy that it turned out that I kind of, my eyes were open and I realized like I got to get right with my Hornets when I did, because it was right at a time where they were at rock bottom. Like, irrelevant. They didn't have LaMelo yet. They didn't have any stars yet. Miles Bridges wasn't considered a star yet. They weren't shit. And so I feel like I got on at rock bottom, which is what I want to be getting on, because that way when they finally pop and hopefully win something in the not too distant future, like, oh, I remember the point I was going to make. So we were talking about jerseys. Dylan Barton, he says great stuff. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you. Glad you got in here. Speaking of jerseys, I want to be the type of fan. I don't have a ton of jerseys yet. I've got an old Derek Jeter jersey from like my childhood that I'm going to actually put in a case and put on the wall because it doesn't fit me anymore. So it'd be kind of a cool little piece here for the collection. I have 2 Amika Okafor jerseys for the Bobcats. I've got a Raymond Felton Bobcats jersey, and I've got a Harrison Barnes Tar Heel jersey. And then I've got a couple T-shirt jerseys, like the ones that they're like a T-shirt with the jersey. I got a Cam Newton, a Teddy Bridgewater, both for the Panthers. And then I think I got a Tyler Zeller Tar Heels T-shirt jersey. But I want to be the type of fan. This is how deep I'm willing to go on this. Because I know a lot of people are like, you're not a real... Like, this is how serious I am about this shit, just to prove it. I want to be the type of fan that I get whatever no name. Like, I want to be so diehard about my teams that I want to get literally the last bench player that they added, whatever player that just got added to the bench off the fucking practice squad or the G League team or the Greensboro Swarm up the road. I want to be the most psychotic, most diehard type of fan that I get that person. Like, I go on Fanatics, and they got the jersey where you can customize and put whatever last name you want on it and whatever number you want, so I can go make this player's jersey. And I literally want to get that jersey of that no-name player that you don't even know they exist, even though they're on your favorite team. And I'm going to wear it to a game or wear it out where we're watching the game. And old buddy's going to be like, who's that? Who's that? I'm like, motherfucker, that's your long snapper, Mr. Fan that you are. That's the most psychotic. That's the type of psychotic diehard in the trenches with you at all times fan that I want to be. And yes, to that point, and I'm so excited about this, Dylan Barton nailed it. You can now support college players with the name, image, likeness stuff. You can get their jerseys, which is super cool to that point. I'm glad you mentioned, and that's one thing I'm super excited about, because I remember growing up, like I would always try to find like a Tyler Hansbrough jersey or a Danny Green jersey or a Ty Lawson jersey on that 09 Tar Heel team. And I would want one that had their last name on it, like the ones that they actually wear in the games. I could never find one. You could only find one with like the number on it. So unless somebody customized it and made it themselves, but they were super hard to find and probably really expensive. So that's one thing I'm really excited about, name, image, likeness. Like, I'm going to go find me a Sam Howell jersey now. So I'm going to get out of here because I got to get going. I got to go to the post office. Got to I sold a Guitar Hero controller the other day. I got to take it to the post office. But Dylan Barton, glad you got in here. I'm glad to be doing these shows. I'm glad to have you in, and I'm looking to grow this community as much as I can. I'm doing this a lot. Old Dylan Barton says he couldn't find a Jabbar Gaffney jersey. Who did he play for? I'm going to look it up. Oh, that's right. You're a Florida fan. That's who he played for. That's right. I'd almost forgotten about that. Hell yeah. Well, Dylan Barton, go get you a Jabbar Gaffney jersey. I'm going to go get a Sam Howell jersey, and I will see you tomorrow at noon Eastern time right here on the Wilbur and Gold Show. We'll see you next time.